Hi, everyone. Cole here with our Selkirk United Church midweek message for Wednesday, May the 18th, 2022. Before I get to anything else, I want to give you a bocce ball update. If you've been in church the past few weeks, either in person or online, you'll know that we are having a family fun day coming up in a week and a half on Sunday, May 29th, begins at 2 p.m. at Selkirk Park. It is definitely a go since we now have 20 people signed up. Isn't that great? We have 10 teams of 2, but there's always room for more. So don't delay, get your team signed up so we know how many to expect for food, etc. Individuals can sign up too, and we'll get you connected with someone else to make up a team of 2. Spectators are welcome and expected, but also let us know if you're coming just to watch so we can, again, plan for food. It's always about the food, isn't it? You can let us know by sending an email to chris@selkirkunitedchurch.ca or by phoning the office. Hope you can join us. Okay, onward. We included in our prayers this past Sunday a prayer for the people of Minnedosa United Church who could not get to their church to worship on Sunday due to rising floodwaters. Just a few hours ago, I heard a small business owner from Minnedosa on the radio giving an update on their situation there. It isn't great. Basements are flooded, businesses are in jeopardy, a state of emergency has been declared by the town. Students are learning remotely because the school is surrounded by water. Let's keep the people of Minnedosa and all others affected by flooding these days in our prayers today. There was some good news in that news report. The small business owner who was being interviewed was saying just how amazing it was how the whole community has responded to those who are most in need. She said that while she was in the midst of sandbagging, people just kept showing up to help, including members of 2 different Hutterite colonies and a whole football team. There was another story the day before about just how many people volunteered to do whatever was needed, everything from sandbagging to making sandwiches. It is a scary story for all of those involved, but it's always heartwarming to see how people do come together to offer what they can when there is a need. I've been thinking about that whole idea lately of community, of connection, of reaching out, all of that. It's the way God created us all to be, but we don't always see it happening in our world, do we? We need more of it. It is certainly what we are called to be about in our churches. At Selkirk United, we try hard to live into that calling, finding ways to connect with others both outside our walls and within our church building, finding ways to help where help is needed, to support, to welcome, to stand with, to advocate for. Speaking of connecting with people both within and outside our walls, we had a very good session yesterday at our Sacrilegion gathering, which is our weekly online discussion group. The theme was about renting out church buildings to various groups and even to other churches. We heard some stories about other churches across the country and some of the challenges that they are having with some of their renters and prospective renters. I won't get into that whole discussion, but it was a really good one. I will say that it made me feel so good about all of our relationships with the various groups that come into our church to either rent or borrow space in our building. Just today, there's a group gathered here to get organized and set up for the Nova House Wellness Day. That is tomorrow in our church space. And what a great group of folks that is. Our church always seems to be such an active place with so many different people and groups coming and going. And we always hear so many wonderful comments about our space and even some about our hospitality. It is an important part of our ministry, the idea of having our doors open and being a welcoming, safe space for the wider community. It's a really important part of who we are at Selkirk United, and we take that role very seriously. Something else that we take very seriously, and it's kind of related in a way, is the idea of reaching out. I think those 2 ideas, welcoming others into our building and reaching out to others, are kind of like 2 sides of the same coin. Both of those concepts have to do with how we relate to the world around us, how we represent God's love in how we relate to others. I saw a really cool graphic the other day that I think is a perfect representation of both of those ideas, welcoming in and reaching out. Let's see if I can call it up here and show it to you on the screen. So I hope you can see that. It is a church with no walls. I love that idea. Not sure who put that together or created it, but I thought it was pretty neat. I mean, we kind of need our walls sometimes, especially during Manitoba winters, right? But the symbolism of this picture is just great, isn't it? That's the way church should be, I think. No walls getting in the way of our relationships with those around us. No walls getting in the way of our outreach and our service to the wider world. No walls keeping us trapped inside in our own space, just with our own folks, keeping us from getting out into the world to fulfill our calling, God's calling. Okay, one last story. This one comes from one specific United Church congregation in Oshawa, Ontario, but I'm sure it could have come from just about any of our churches across the country, including our own. Christopher White shares a story from his church about a woman tuning into their online church service during the pandemic from her workplace. He says, "Last Sunday morning, a member of my church was at work in a factory and was streaming our worship on her phone. When it came time for communion, she fully participated, took the bread and the cup, although she told me that she got some odd looks. But it meant so much to her to share in worship with our community, even if she couldn't be there physically." He says, "To me, that's the joy of God breaking through, just so joyful." Isn't that great? From a factory. I've heard many of those kinds of stories, people sharing in worship wherever they happen to be, and it is shared then with those around them. It's so heartwarming to know that people are continuing to find ways to stay connected and to find ways to get the support they need, the strength they need, the communion that they need, the inspiration they need. And then I trust that after being inspired and nourished and fed, that all of us find ways to go out into the world to share the joy and the love and the welcome that we have received. Let's keep doing all of that and more in God's name, shall we? And that's this week's edition of Selkirk United Church's midweek message. Stay connected, everyone. I will be away for next week, but I will be back in 2 weeks' time with another midweek message. Take care and God bless.